Okay.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Football First podcast. We've got a special guest and a great friend here with us today for the show, Drew Evers, massive Notre Dame fan and a great football mind. Knows the ins and outs of the program. So, after all that hype, we'll get right into it. Notre Dame 0-2 right now. Tough start. They pulled two really tough contests right off the bat against Miami and Texas A&M, two very stout, well-coached football teams. Drew, what are your thoughts on sort of how the season has started, and maybe even diving into a little bit of the details in those games?
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, tough start for the season. I feel like the last couple of years they've honestly started off pretty tough. They've had, I don't know, I wish I should have thought about this or wrote this down. I can't remember the last time they started the season um, at home and it wasn't like a top 25 matchup. Like the first game of the year. I feel like their
Yeah,
past couple seasons, first games have been road games and like tough road games too. So yeah, to your point, like that's a very tough start for them. Tough couple of draws going Miami and then A&M at home. So definitely a tough start to the season. Not the way we wanted to start the year. Certainly knew that going down to Miami was going to be a tall order. That team's got a very good. They've got a great defensive line as well as an offensive line. I didn't realize, and I don't know if this was maybe just me or if this is kind of commonplace. A lot of people felt this way. I didn't realize just how good Miami's DNs were.
yeah,
Um, they
they're
kind of took
stacked,
that
man.
game over. Yeah, they
Yeah.
really are, dude. I mean, those
Well,
are some
they got
big
open
defensive games.
checkbook.
Yeah, it's true. Got a little South Beach money.
Yeah,
But no, those dudes were game wreckers for sure. Definitely exposed some things on our O line. That was I guess if I start with that game, that was probably my biggest takeaway from that game was um, our O line play and just kind of how poor it was, especially in the pass game. We typically Notre Dame is, I mean, you're obviously well aware of this, but typically Notre Dame's a very like, hey, our identity is running the ball, and we are a very strong offensive line kind of program, and
right.
that's sort of just kind of been their bread and butter for I feel like the past, even the down years. That's really kind of where they hung their hat was we can still run the ball, and we're still a very offensive line dominant program, and just did not seem that way week one.
Yeah,
Line was definitely kind of in shambles there, so that was tough to see. Definitely picked it up week two a little bit from the offensive line standpoint. And it seemed like our run blocking was a lot better week two, where it was left a little bit to be desired week one. But still, it kind of exposed us a little more than I thought it would for sure. So those were two things I think that kind of jumped right out at me off the rip, as far as kind of what I saw from weeks one and two that I was shocked by. Obviously, the big thing is the defense was the big thing that shocked everybody with how poorly Notre Dame's defense has been playing this year. But I thought the O line was another thing, kind of secondary. But I was a little bit surprised and a little disappointed with how they played to start the
yeah.
season.
It sounds like, Marcus Freeman, with him at the helm, you'd think that you'd have just like the stoutest defense. And I've heard a few things prior to the season about how well some of these guys were supposed to play this year. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know the guy's name necessarily, but I thought I heard something about a DB was supposed to be all world. I don't know if that's true or not. I might have misheard. But anyway, I wrote down a stat here of what they gave up. They were giving up.
that's bad.
My God, what am I looking? But yeah, Notre Dame's defense they're allowing 34 points a game so far. I mean,
Yeah, I
that's
mean
only
it's
a that's a two game you know
sample size,
sample
sure,
size. Yeah, two-game sample
right.
size against two super tough teams. And Miami's got a pretty nice offense there, and
Yeah, they
Texas
definitely
A&M
do with
has
Vic for
athletes.
sure.
So,
Yeah,
but you don't want to be giving that many points up a game, especially that early in the season. But let's have these guys start settling in, learn from the tape, and like you said, you can hang your hat on playing two tough opponents. Granted, those are going to be moral victories there, but you can kind of use that going into this game against Purdue, where you can kind of beat up on these guys and kind of sharpen your sword.
yeah, I absolutely agree there, and I think they will ultimately. But just kind of to piggyback off what you said, as far as like 34 points a game, also, and this ties in a lot with it's a new defense or new defensive coordinator rather, and Chris Ash, his first season there. Um, wasn't really too gung ho on the hire right off the rip, but just I didn't know enough, like a lot about the guy. We've got our DB coach Mike Mickens. I really thought he should have been the guy, just an internal hire. Knew already knew the program, was familiar with the program, was an in house thing. But regardless, they went with Chris Ash, and we've definitely seen a fall off. I mean, listen, losing an Al Golden, obviously you're gonna feel that dude was
Right.
obviously one of the best coordinators in football, and that's why he's in the NFL now. But you knew you were going to hurt there a little bit. But to your point, I mean, we've got Leonard Moore. That's the defensive back I think that you were alluding to that was supposed to
Okay.
be
Yeah.
all. And I mean, he has been, admittedly, he's been one of the few bright points. Like our defense has had not a lot good, not
Yeah.
a lot that's looked good so far. And he's played well so far, but he's really kind of been one of the only guys. Him and maybe I thought Drake Bowen had a really good game. Against A&M. Now he was in coverage when they gave up the game-winning touchdown. So obviously people are going to see that, and I think their knee-jerk reaction is going to be like, "Oh, he gave up the game-winning touchdown,"
Right.
which he did, and I guess that's fair. But up until that point, I thought he had played a pretty solid game. I think there are guys who have flashed a little bit defensively, but not a lot of consistency across
Yeah.
the board. And I don't necessarily know what to chalk that up to. I will say this: guys just seem lost and don't like. It doesn't seem like they know their assignments. So I mean, I went back and watched that A&M game again, and if you look and just kind of focus on the defense, you'll see the DBs especially. They're talking up until the ball snap. They're pointing at each other, kind of yelling out things. So which makes you think like, all right, these guys are still working on getting lined up to the very
Yeah.
last minute. So that tells me, all right, they don't know necessarily their assignments, and they're not they're not playing aggressively because I think they're second guessing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like they are not able, they're thinking too much and not able to just go out and play.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously you play college football, you know that like that's probably one of the worst things you can do is just trying to be in your head too much and not just trusting your instincts and going out and being a football player first. And that's kind of I feel like that's where they're at defensively right now, and I think that's kind of a obviously a big issue if that is the case. So they need to figure out how to either simplify the defense or just kind of get back to what those guys are comfortable with playing defensively and maybe make it a little more vanilla on the defensive side of the ball just so they can go out and be athletes and kind of especially against a team like Purdue, like
Right.
let your Jimmies beat their Joes kind of thing. We got the better
Absolutely.
athletes, let them just go out and play.
Yeah. I think you got to keep it simple in this game as number one, because of what you're saying, free these guys up, free their heads up, let them
Yeah.
go out, play with their hair on fire, and go knock somebody's ass off. You know what I mean? Like let them
Yeah,
be football
exactly.
players, and don't fill their heads with X's and O's. Um, you sometimes got to be creative in these. Unfortunately, this early in the season, you got to be creative with these two tough teams, and you got to bring a lot of your defense that you might have kept till a little later in the season if you played some cupcakes. Uh, but yeah, sometimes with those new coordinators, Evs, it'll take a while, as you know, it'll take a while for these guys to kind of learn the system and get real comfortable with it. So it might take some growing pains, unfortunately, but you just don't have the luxury of being able to grow into it when you play tough opponents right out the gate.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. The
and in this landscape too, without them having a conference championship, it's one of those things that you can't afford to lose both. So it's just going to be one of those things where they have to keep growing and playing hard and working on their on the mental aspect as well during the game and in practice and watching film, and they'll get better. I definitely have confidence in this team. I've watched enough of their games to know that they got grit and they got the coaches to help them facilitate these wins. And if they keep at it, they'll tighten it up. And like you said, I think Purdue is the perfect spot, the perfect game to be able to kind of showcase that.
Yeah, for sure. It's a get right spot for him. But and I to that point too, I think that something that probably wasn't thought about or talked about enough in this going into this season is, I mean, they lost some veteran leadership in the back end and Xavier Watts. He's now obviously in
Yeah,
Atlanta, starting down there. Like that guy was a dog. Everybody knew he was a dog, but losing that leadership, losing to Jack Kaiser, who had been there for, I think Kaiser was there for at least like 4 years. He might have been there 5, honestly. But losing those two guys on defense, kind of And they lost some other veteran leadership on defense. But I think that was another thing that maybe didn't get talked about enough was just, they did lose a lot of leadership. They've got some really good athletes on the defensive side of the ball, but do they have that, that veteran presence and that leadership? Or somebody's got to step up on that side and kind of be that guy for him moving forward here. And again, Purdue, I feel like it's a good get right game for him, a good spot for that. So hopefully, Drake Bowen, he's one of the captains. Hopefully he kind of steps up and owns that a little bit and takes over that role.
Yeah, we just kind of got to figure out who's going to be that next Notre Dame stud, that household name on that side of the ball. Evs, you want to talk a little bit about offense kind of to start the season? We definitely you gave a good rundown on the defense. I kind of want to talk about this offense, specifically kind of CJ Carr, how he's been doing, the run game with Jeremiah Love, and then kind of this O line. You kind of alluded to the O line and some of their issues. To start off, I'd like to give you a little stat here. They had the fifth worst pass pro grade in the first 2 weeks I saw.
Yeah.
That's pretty tough. The bottom five pass pro grades pretty tough. So if you kind of just want to expand on that, it's kind of what you saw. You don't have to necessarily talk about the O line, but just kind of your general thoughts on the offense and where we're going from there.
Yeah, for sure. Surprisingly, I think the offense has been one of the lone bright spots on the team, which going into the season, I would have been very shocked to say after week 2 if I was like, oh, that's the bright spot of our team so far. So yeah, I'll touch on some of the pretty much all the things you talked about there a minute ago. Obviously, I talked about the line to some extent. I do think that bottom 5 that's rough, but I didn't know it was that bad.
Hey, if
But
you're around
week
first team though,
1,
but
yeah, I mean, ugh.
yeah,
Week
it's just
1
tough.
though
There's
was
no good
bad.
way to put that. Yeah,
No, I mean it's not. But week 1, I think skewed those numbers a little bit because I do think they improved um, from week 1 to week 2 in the pass pro and definitely in run blocking. I also think a little bit of some of the stuff with week 1 was Carr probably holding on to the ball a little too long. Regardless, I mean their pass pro,
right.
like their PFF grades were atrocious across the board week 1. So I'm not trying to give them an out there, but there were some times when he kind of held on to the ball, and I think that's just part of him being a young quarterback. But that said, he's a dude. Like he's redshirt freshman. He's going to have his mistakes. Like that's just part of being a redshirt freshman, especially against those first 2 opponents. So I think that part's just kind of normal and to be expected. The interceptions and, like I said, holding on to the ball a little bit longer than he should, maybe, or trying to force some things. But man, some of the throws he's made down the field have been incredible. He's connected with Malachi Fields a few times with some just incredible ball placement, something that Notre Dame really hasn't had. I feel like in a quarterback in a number of years. Obviously,
He's,
Riley Leonard last year was a dude, but like definitely more impacted the game with his legs. Whereas CJ Carr is definitely he's a passer. He's a pocket
yep.
passer, and he can find you some yards on the ground, obviously, if he needs to. And they did run him a little bit in the first game, more than I thought they would, honestly. And he did all right with it, but he can really, really, really stretch the field and kind of hold defenses, hold them accountable because he can beat you with his arm. And then, like you said, we've got Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, who are 2 dogs, and they'll obviously beat you on the ground. And I think we saw a little bit of that too in week 2. We got back to our run game, and I really liked how Jeremiah Love ran the ball week 2. I thought he ran hard. I think he had 94 yards, something like that, on 23 carries, 23 touches, 94
Yep.
yards, and then
4.1
Price had like,
average.
yeah, like he had a good game. I think Price had more of those chunk plays, I would
Yeah.
say. But I thought Jeremiah Love ran really hard and did a good job in the that little Wildcat package they ran. Didn't love how much they ran that. I didn't love some of the
Yeah.
spots as far as like some of the fourth down, running on fourth down wouldn't have been my call, but Mike Denbrock knows a hell of a lot more football than I do, so
Yeah.
I'll uh,
Above your pay
I'll
grade.
assume he knows what he's doing there.
Yeah.
but but no, I thought the offense looked really good, especially week 2. I mean, you hang 41 points or whatever. I think it was 41, or no, 40 points. I'm sorry.
Yep.
You hang 40 points you can't
Like
be
it's
mad at the
A
offense.
tough D, and they're going to wind up
Yeah,
being one of the best defenses in the country, I'm sure. Mike Elko, great defensive
yeah. I mean,
mind. It's gonna, yeah,
that's his identity and always has
right,
been. I mean, he was obviously a Notre Dame guy before he was at A&M.
yeah,
And like he's been a defensive guy. That's kind of his background. Same as Marcus Freeman.
right,
Um, those are both defensive minded guys. They're both former D coordinators. Like that's going to be their identity. And that's an A&M team that's got a good offense now too. Like they've
yeah,
got a pretty decent offense. It's not Miami's offense. I like Miami's offense better. Obviously, I think they've got a better quarterback. Um, but they're a decent offense. But I think unfortunately Saturday I think was more just Notre Dame's defense not being elite like we thought it would be, more so than the A&M offense.
right. Well, I mean, as far as the offense goes, man, I'm right with you on the 1-2 punch with Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, man. That's got to be the best running back duo in the country.
Oh yeah,
Like you said, Jeremiah Love runs hard as hell. Price is right with them as far as tenacity. Those guys are both really great runners as far as, running behind their pads, keeping a great pad level and just taking off. They'll hit the hole real quick and hard, and they fight for every yard. And then there's some nuance as to that those O line stats, and you know that, and you kind of alluded to that, where if you actually watch the film and if you're kind of breaking it down and whatnot, you might see that a quarterback held on to the ball too long or this and that kind of skews those stats a little bit. So yeah, that O line, you don't. I've never been a believer in any O line stat. Those things are kind of BS to me. It's just how can you get a more cohesive group moving forward and just keep working
right.
together to protect your quarterback and then gain those tough running yards and with those athletes in the backfield, I think it's going to be no worry moving forward. You just got to keep keep improving on both sides of the ball and like you said, CJ Carr, that dude can throw the ball and he can throw the ball
Yeah,
downfield. And I heard I think he's like 51.8% or something like that of passes over 20 yards or something like that. I think it was that he's completing. So he's pretty much leading the country in deep balls, if I heard the stat correctly earlier.
yeah.
Um, and
He hasn't
this
thrown
run,
that many yet, but
okay,
um,
with that run game, you're going to have a chance to do some play action bombs. And like you said,
oh for sure, yeah,
you take the top off the defenses when everybody's cheating up because you've got such a prolific run game. You're going to be able to open it up real nice in the pass game. So if CJ Carr keeps going on that trajectory, Notre Dame can be a really dangerous team, and they are a dangerous team. It's just they just got to find their rhythm, I think.
yeah. I agree 100%.
All right, man. So after the games, you mentioned you wanted to talk a little bit about Marcus Freeman's interviews. Is there anything that really stood out to you in either of the post game interviews from Miami or the Texas A&M games?
Yeah, I mean nothing like earth shattering. The biggest thing, the biggest takeaway was he had his Monday presser, and he just talked about how, um, without coming right out and saying it, it seemed like he's going to have more of a hand in. Um, I don't know if it'll be calling the defenses necessarily, but it seems like he's definitely going to have much more influence in that than he did in weeks 1 and 2. Again, I said it earlier, he's a defensive coach. We know that he's a former defensive coordinator, um, and something's got to change with that defense. Like I said, they just seem lost out there. They don't. It doesn't seem like they know their assignments. They're not. Guys are running free too. That was the most annoying thing too. On the rewatch of the game is like if you're going to play zone defense or whatever, that's fine. But dudes are just getting a free release off the line of scrimmage. They're not jamming anybody. Like these guys are just running free. And when you've got, I mean, we have obviously good athletes, but you're going against very good athletes too. Now you can maybe get away with that with a lesser team. But when you're going against elite athletes, like you got to get these guys off their route a little bit coming off the
Yeah,
line, or else you're setting your guys up to fail. And I noticed those dudes were they were getting a free release. And honestly, Purdue has we'll talk about this more when we talk game predictions and everything like that. But I mean, Purdue does have a good receiving core too.
yeah,
So they can hurt you that way. Purdue can through the air. So anyway, biggest takeaway from his presser was it does seem like he's going to have more of a hand in calling some of the defense, or at least kind of influencing what they call and what they run. And I come away from that feeling better about things, just because he's a defensive guy. He's been there, done that. He obviously, I mean, they were one of the top defenses in the country last year. Admittedly, that was Al Golden as the coordinator, but Freeman was still there. You know what I mean? And so was Mickens and Max Bullough, the linebacking coach. Like, they were all still there, so they had a big part in that as well. So I think that'll help. But it's tough when you're a first year coordinator like that, like
Yeah.
Chris Ash. I mean, you're an Ohio State guy. Like Jim Knowles didn't come in and immediately set the world on. Now, he didn't have two
No.
terrible games like this, but like it takes a little bit of it takes a little time. So I'm not ready to send him packing by any stretch of the
Right. Yeah.
imagination. But obviously something's got to change, and I think it will eventually. But I think it can only be helped by having Freeman in there, having a little more influence. I think
Yeah.
that'll probably everybody will benefit from that. So excited to see what they come out looking like this week on the defensive side. I'm looking for them to really, like you said, play like their hair, just kind of fly around, play with their hair on fire, and just, even if you're going to make a mistake, just make it aggressive as hell, run through somebody's
Yeah.
face, and then if you screw up, you screw up, and you live to see another down, hopefully. But just play loose, play free, and kind of just play ferocious defense. So that's what I'm hoping to see.
Evs, do you think he's taken some of the duties because he just wants a little more control over it, because he might see some opportunities where he can maybe improve some of the play calls? Or what do you think? Do you think he's losing trust at all, or do you think that's just kind of he just wants his hand a little more in it, and so that he can kind of grab control, because it's his football team when it's all said and
Yeah,
done?
exactly. I don't think he's losing trust. No. I I don't know. It's so tough to cut through all that coach speak and see,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
you have
But
no idea.
also, it's 2 games. It's 2 games in,
Yeah,
and he hired this guy for a reason. Like, he
right.
obviously wouldn't hire somebody he didn't believe in. So he went out and hired this guy for a reason. I mean, Chris Ash was, um, there was I listened to an interview that I can't remember who it was, but somebody did with, after they hired Chris Ash, because he was on like Urban Meyer's staff at Ohio State. And the way Urban Meyer spoke so highly about him, it's like, all right, this dude, and I mean, that's one of the best college football coaches that's ever done it.
Right.
So if he's speaking this highly of the guy, like, obviously he has a lot of respect for him. He definitely attributed a lot of their success to Chris Ash. So I don't think Freeman is losing faith in him. I think
Right.
he just wants a little more of a hand in it. And again, like you said, it's his football team. At the end of the day, that could just be an accountability thing of, it's my football team. I got to step up, and maybe it's him kind of, protecting his coach a little bit and saying, okay, well, let me get in here. That way, if, you know, the blame's not all on
Yeah.
Chris Ash and not everybody's pointing at him. So I don't think it's like, hey, this dude's got
Right.
2 more games, and if he doesn't put up or shut up, we're sending him out the door. I don't think it's
Yeah.
anything like that.
That's a good point. And I've heard in some of the preseason stuff that where I saw some interviews of him, he seems like a guy that really does take a lot of responsibility for leading that football team and just being the head coach and just the lead dog of the entire squad, as far as, having everything falls on his head, and he takes full responsibility in that. And then, like you said, I think that that's kind of just him doing that, in my humble opinion. And yeah, it's definitely not time to lose faith, and he knows that. He's been around the block too much
Yeah.
to lose faith that quickly in a guy like that. So
Right. And he's a
I'd say
fourth year head coach. Like, it's not,
right.
this is all, I mean, this is all new to him to that extent, too. Like, this is really the first time that he's had a coordinator really, really struggle like that.
Yeah.
I mean, he assembled a great staff when he started at Notre Dame, and has been able to continue that. Like, I feel like this is really the first time that he's faced sort of, I don't want to say scrutiny, but like, he's had a coordinator that's really been kind of getting run down the road by every outlet
Right.
and every fan. So I'm sure that's probably part of it too. Like, this is
Yeah.
not something that he's had to deal with yet in his head coaching career. So I'm sure it's probably new for him too. How
Absolutely.
to navigate that.
Well, let's talk about righting the ship here, Evs. What do you think about this contest at home against Purdue? We got a Notre Dame is favored by 25.5 points, over under 51.5. Um, they're playing, like I said, Purdue. They're 2-1, I think it is. I wrote it down. They're 2-1. Their QB Ryan Brown threw 3 picks against USC in their last game.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing just from what I read about them, he's a little bit of a gunslinger, but he will make some mistakes and throw some picks. He's thrown a lot of picks so far this season. They won 31-0 against Ball State, who kind of stinks a lot, and then 34-17 against Southern Illinois, who not many people even know who that is. So they're averaging 27.3 points a game, 271.7 pass yards, 119.7 rush yards. Like I said, the QB, they pass a lot, but he throws a lot of interceptions. They have two good receivers in Armand Branch and Devin Maccabee, who you kind of alluded to when you were talking about this matchup. What's your rundown and predictions on this game?
Yeah, so I'll just give you my thoughts on personnel first, and then maybe just try to put a bow on everything as far as
Yeah.
my actual score prediction. Um, so yeah, I said it earlier, and you touched on it a little bit there, but they really do have a good receiving core. Um, so I mean, if they, I think the matchup to watch is going to be their wide receivers against Notre Dame's DBs, because that's really where Notre Dame has struggled this year. Leonard Moore is, I think he's questionable with an ankle, which is our number one DB. So let me, I think I have the depth chart up here somewhere. Yeah, yeah. So he's questionable with an ankle. I assume he probably will play because I think he went back in against A&M. So I think he'll probably play. But regardless, like we have to play better defensively. I don't care who we're playing because this is a good receiving core that if they get space and if they get, like I talked about earlier, if they can run free off the line, like they can gash you. And if you're not sure of your assignment and you're not sure where you need to be and you're playing timid or you're second guessing, they can make you pay. So that's one thing to watch. I do think I expect us to come out and I think we'll be playing very, very good assignment football. I don't expect Notre Dame to keep on this kind of downward spiral defensively. So that's a fun matchup to watch. Another thing that I'm really excited about, and I think will be great for us at this point in the season, is this O line for Purdue is their dog water. So this could finally be the chance for our D line to kind of start establishing itself. This is a tough stat that I wrote down that I heard, and it's bad. So in sacks, Notre Dame tied for 133rd. So tied for last in the country in sacks, with just one sack through 2 games. We are dead last in tackles for loss, with only 4 tackles for loss. Again, 2 good lines that they win against the first 2 games, so it's very, very tough there, but just very, very not a good stat to see. Not a good stat to see, not a good stat to hear. This Purdue line is not good. So I think some of those interceptions that you see are probably a result of that. And like you said, he is kind of a gunslinger. He'll sling the pill and just kind of, with a good receiving core like that, just take some of those shots and just go for it kind of thing. So I think it's probably a combination of those 2 things. I don't think he's a terrible quarterback who's just making boneheaded plays. I think it's probably a little bit of a combination of him being a gunslinger, having a good receiving core, and having a piss poor line. So anyway, I'm excited to see that from our defensive line standpoint. I think this could be a good, give him a little bit of boost, a little bit of juice going into, I think it's Arkansas next week, maybe.
Yeah, I have it pulled up here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's tough
Arkansas
too.
and then Boise
Down
State.
at Arkansas. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
So
tough place to play.
it is, especially, I mean, it's SEC. They're a solid ball club too.
Yeah.
So I think that's another good matchup to watch. I'm excited. I think the potential is there for sure for Notre Dame to get after it. They should be in the backfield quite a bit. There's no reason for them not to be.
Yeah.
Purdue should be in situations where they're going to have to throw the ball. So we should really have Bryce Young. I really think Bryce Young could have a big game. just kind of pin his ears back and get back there and get after that ass a little bit. Maybe force a couple of turnovers. I think this again. I think this is a really good spot for the Irish as far as a get right game.
Yeah.
Get the defensive line feeling themselves a little bit. Hopefully, force a turnover or two. Let the DBs start kind of trusting their instincts, trusting their gut a little bit more. If they see a pick, see two picks, see a fumble recovery, whatever it may be, I think that can give them a little bit of confidence and hopefully, again, like I said earlier, Drake Bowen steps up and is kind of that leader that we're looking for on the defensive side. As far as offensively, I'm not as worried. I liked what I saw last week. Week one was a lot of out of Denbrock. It was a lot of RPOs that CJ Carr ended up pulling a lot of them when he probably should have handed them off. So you saw a lot of screen passes week one. Week two, it seemed like they did not throw nearly as many screens, which I was more than okay with. They, like you said, he kind of attacked down the field a little bit, which was good to see. And we kind of got back to our bread and butter. We established our run game a little bit and let Jeremiah Love be the best running back in the country and just kind of go for it. I expect them to do the same kind of thing this week. I don't think they're going to try to. I don't expect them to get fancy or try to do anything, mind blowing this week. I think it's going to be very much a healthy diet of Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, some play action passes. Maybe get CJ Carr going in the run game a little bit more. Use some quarterback power, kind of like we saw a little bit in week one. We didn't see too much of that. Actually, I don't know if he ran the ball at all on a design quarterback run against A&M. So I would expect to see maybe a little bit of that. And then they might do that Wildcat again with Price, or no, it was with Love. I don't know. I didn't necessarily love that just because I feel like you're putting yourself 11 on 10 then because they were trotting
Yeah.
Carr out there at wide out. Like that was, I don't know. That's one of those things though. I feel like that's kind of a people either love it or hate it sort of thing. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And
I'm
I
a
fall
hater
in
of
the
it
camp and
too.
I don't love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I just hate it. So, but regardless, anyway, I think this is a good get right spot for us. I don't think the offense really has any hiccups. Hopefully, I could see this being I think we'll score a lot. I don't know if we get to 40. My prediction is like a 38-13 ball game
Okay.
for the Irish. Again, it's it's a home game for them, which is good. They should be comfortable. I just think this is a defense that we can really exploit some weaknesses, and I think that on the defensive side of the ball for us, we should be able to get after that O line a little bit, kind of live in the backfield and force some errant throws or some hurried throws, and as a result, force some turnovers. So yeah, I like the Irish to cover. And so I guess what'd you say the over under is 51, 51 and
51
a
and
half,
a
I
half.
guess.
That kicker
So
came into play today.
we're hooking we're on the hook. Or no, we're
Love it.
not getting hooked. I guess we're under it.
But uh, but yeah, man. Thank
Somebody's
you
getting hooked.
for the insight, man. I absolutely loved and agree with everything that you said. I think this is a get right game, especially for that defense. Solidify just kind of how you're going to be playing for the rest of the season. Free up your mind, go out there and play ball like you know you have been, or that you know you can.
Yeah.
You're in that position for a reason, and this is a good defense that just needs to gain its confidence back. And I think this is a perfect game to do so. And then offensively, like you said, just keep the ball rolling, man. CJ Carr, take the top off when you can, and then keep that 1-2 punch rolling all day. Control the line of
Yeah.
scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and yeah, it's going to be a really good day for the Irish if they do all that. My prediction, actually, I'm really right with you. I had 42-17, so I guess I had the
Okay.
over, and I
Yeah.
also have the cover. So yeah, man, I'm right with you.
Yeah, we're right in that. I think I like that. I mean, we're right in the same zone there. I think that's just, I don't know. It just seems like that's right about where this game's going to end up. I
Yep.
don't, I just, I don't think that they're gonna. I hope they can't score on Notre Dame's defense. Let me ask you this real quick. Um, and this is more just long term, but I feel like this is the question that gets because Notre Dame's still top 25 team, which I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that first off,
Yeah.
and then secondly, uh, if Notre Dame wins out, and where do you think they land at the end of the year? Do you think they're in playoff contention? I mean, I know the odds are like
Yeah,
6% or something like
that's
that.
exactly what it was. I'll keep it brief just because I
Was it?
don't pay for the Zoom. I have a 40-minute
Oh,
limit.
shit, my bad. My fault. My
You're
fault.
straight. No, no. I actually was going to bring this up and forgot. Like you said, if they win out, they basically just have to have help.
Yeah.
Somebody
Oh, yeah.
big has to lose, and maybe a couple of good teams have to lose. And like you said, they have exactly a 6% chance from what I read. And I do believe that they deserve to be ranked. There's a lot of good football teams out there that are undefeated, but I mean, this is Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They got a great squad. They deserve to be ranked. They lost just by a couple points, 1 point to a really really good Texas
Yeah.
A&M team that's showing to be better than what they were ranked preseason. Miami as well, and those are two playoff hopefuls. So, I mean, I think they deserve to be ranked. They played hard as hell. They got great athletes, and they're a great team. So I think they deserve to be right there, and they'll show it through the rest of the season in their play.
I hope you're right.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Well, thank you so much, man, for everything. Really appreciate
Yeah,
your
dude, this is
insight.
awesome.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And yeah, we'll hopefully get to have you back on, and we'll talk some Irish later on down the road, man.
Yeah, man. Anytime, just let me know. I appreciate the invite.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks a lot, brother. We'll see you.
All right. See you, man.